Welcome back, friends. Glad you're joining us for another postscript. This last Sunday spoke a little bit about the journey from, let us say, a very difficult time into what one would hope would be an easier time, but one that presents its own challenges. Let me be more specific. The passage from which I preached, or at least which inspired me to preach the sermon that I did, is the story of deliverance as told through the prophet Jeremiah. The people who had survived the sword, meaning bondage and enslavement in Egypt, have found grace in the wilderness. Well, you and I know the story of the wilderness, or at least we've probably heard bits and pieces through our life of that wilderness journey of the Israelites, and of the complaining and the concern and the worries that haunted that journey and that experience. In fact, so much so that there's significant calamity. Remember, that was the building of the golden calf and all the stories, because we're tired of waiting. We need something to focus us, something to give us hope, because wandering in the wilderness for too long is its own kind of suffering and pain. Many times in that story, the children of Israel talked about back in Egypt, that while our situation wasn't great, at least we had food. At least there was something there for us. At least there was something we could predict or count on. We don't even have that now. So we're not sure about our food, but we're not sure about anything. And so I used the adage in my sermon, out of the frying pan into the fire, which I took from J.R.R. Tolkien, but it's a phrase that many of us have uttered before. And it deals with that tension between getting out of one difficult situation, one that you wanted to be delivered from, and then having to confront an equal, albeit different, challenge. And so the title of my sermon is Grace and Grit. I think these two experiences, prerequisites, you might say, capture what it takes to be fully alive, to make this journey of faith, of life together, of community building, of trying to co-create the kingdom of God without knowing if, when, and how that's going to happen. In fact, we do it in the face of mounting evidence that suggests it's futile, it's impossible. Like, we have to be stubborn in our own way to continue, to persist. And that's where the grace and the grit come in, because we're going to make mistakes. Our effort to have impact, to build new and right relationship, is going to come with bumps and bruises. We are going to trip. We are going to stumble. We've already stumbled. We're going to continue to stumble. Our stumbling hasn't ended. So we need grace. We need to feel grace that is extended to us, and we certainly need to give it to others who are stumbling and who have stumbled and who will stumble. We are a community of people who need grace, first and foremost. Then there's the grit. You got to have grit, because it's going to be tough. It's going to feel unbearable. It's going to seem impossible. And you're going to be in a place where you don't think you can go on. And though you've received grace, and you know there are people there, there is the presence of that which we cannot articulate or say, this ineffable mystery that will say love, that will embrace us. But even still, sometimes you have to, as my father would say, grit your teeth and push on for this day. Don't worry about tomorrow, because if you're trying to grit your teeth thinking about the rest of your life, it is going to overwhelm you. But just today, grit your teeth for today. And so this mixture of grace and grit that is required for this life we are called to live, I think will help us to build a new sense of community. One that does not require that we come from the same background, or speak the same language, or look the same, act the same, dress the same. We don't have shared enemies, right? I think those in history have been, let us say, criteria for community. Usually communities are formed around those things: shared beliefs, identities, values, and often enemies. We are trying to build community in a different way. In fact, maybe the word community isn't sufficient. Maybe what we're after is communion. Maybe what we're trying to build as a community of faith is actually a communion of persons who may not have much in common, except we find where we are and where we want to be in the world to be out of time, out of joint. And we want to work together to enrich, to build up, and to help foster something different, something better, something more hopeful, something that will lead to a future, not only for our children, but for everybody's children, for 7 generations, as our indigenous siblings teach us. And so that interstitial community, the community in the cracks, as I said on Sunday, is going to take a lot of time and effort. It requires great patience and certainly requires grace and grit. So you have it, and I just encourage you to maintain it, to offer it freely. When you give grace to somebody else, it doesn't mean you have less. There's plenty of grace to be given to you as well. So continue to give grace and live grace. And sometimes just grit your teeth, right? We will make it. We are here together. We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know how this communion is going to emerge and what it's going to do. But we are called to trust. And so carry your grace and grit, carry that faith and all the other things that you might need. And let's march into this new day together. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.